Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Sales. I'm Ashleigh Early.
And I'm Kasey Jones.
Kasey's back! It's exciting. So this is Kasey's first interview back, and it's an interview because we are finally flipping the tables on my co-host for the past few weeks, Brian Smith Jr. Those of you who don't know Brian, you've just been listening to him spilling the tea with our interviews the past few weeks. Brian is an account executive at Vendition, but really, when I asked him to write an intro, he said he's here just to educate the people. So Brian, thank you so much for all your help the past few weeks. You are amazing. I'm so excited more people got to meet you and get to know you a little bit and to get to know you a little bit more today. And Kasey, yay, you're back doing interviews with me again. I'm super excited.
I'm super excited. And let's be honest, it's been a few months. Let's not discount, it's been a while.
It's been a minute. So this is a return to the new normal. Or something.
Whatever the hell that is.
I know. It's still 2020. It's still the great weirdness. I still have no idea what's going on in the world. But I want to start, Brian, asking you a question because you've been kind of the temporary co-host. And I want to be really clear here. You jumped in literally with less than 24 hours notice. Yeah. Into doing this. So you are an absolute rock star for doing that, for just diving in and saying yes immediately. What have been is there anything that you've learned, anything that's really stood out, any kind of memorable experiences from the past month or two?
Oh man, such a good question. I think that everybody truly has a story, and not just a story, but a story that can help us move forward. And I think a lot of the problems we have specifically in sales, in the tech arena, is that we just may not be listening. And just like we do in business, right? We utilize things to capitalize on. We're not capitalizing on these stories and these unheard voices to make a better business world, for a better sales world, better organizations. I just don't think we're truly listening.
I'm so glad you said that because, and I'm not going to spill the beans, but Ashleigh and I are going through all the data from the survey. And one of the things that we are really astounded by is there's way more people that say they've experienced discrimination of some kind than say that they've witnessed it. And we totally expected the opposite. And it made us really think, and we don't know why, but we both were like, does that mean we just do not pay attention to one another? Are we not looking out for each other, listening to each other? And I'm wondering, I think this is an issue, and I think this is something we want to kind of continue to dig into. But from what you've seen, what do you think are some of the things that those of us that recognize this as a problem, how can we do a better job, A, of listening, and B, of helping other people tell their stories?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think immediately off the top of my head, I think if we approach it just the same way we approach business, right? I'm here to develop myself, figure out what I need to truly get in order to do what I ultimately want to do. And in the same way, you're doing the same thing. If we came together and looked at that, right? Because when you do that, it's just like a sales cycle, right? We're talking about sales, obviously. You got to present some value. It's got to be a win-win situation. I've never seen a deal close and there's a win-lose situation, right? Somebody doesn't sign a contract if they're going to, it's not going to work out. So I think that's number one. What we need to do is we need to come to the table and figure out how do both parties win. I think it's one-sided. So how we do that specifically, I think there's, I don't know if I know exactly how to do it. I know we got to come to the table though, together and figure out, what are some benefits for whether it's the Black community, whether it's the gay community, whether it's, women in general, whoever it is, we got to come together and figure out what's the value for us.
Do you think that one of the barriers to this, so I've just been talking to a lot of people lately about imposter syndrome.
Oh God, don't get me started on that.
Sometimes I wonder, are we not hearing some of these stories because people are so afraid of the repercussions they might get by telling them, or that no one wants to hear them, or is it the fear component? Is it the personal fear component? Or do you think it is more that like businesses have created an environment where, I don't know, we've been trained not to be honest and say what's really going on?
Yeah, for sure. It is what it is, right? Like, we live in a capitalist society. And because we live in a capitalist society, that's in everything we do, right?
Yeah.
If this thing, typically, if I don't think it could truly get me ahead, there's no reason to involve myself in it. That's just the way it works. We can get into so many other different things about, like, in our society since the very beginning, how things have been designed for certain people to succeed.
Yeah.
I don't think imposter syndrome is a very big thing. I don't think that's the reason why people, we don't have a more diverse companies and culture and et cetera.
For sure. Yeah.
So I've known you for a few years now. We've been friends. I've tried to hire you. I've tried to get you hired because
Shout out to Ashleigh, by the way. Shout out to Ashleigh.
Humble brag.
Yeah, like you're awesome. And I mean, I remember one of my first, I mentioned to Trish Bertuzzi that I was working with you. And the first thing she said was, oh my God, we got to get him out of there, where you were currently working at that point. So you're kind of got this small but loyal fan base of people who know your stuff. But one of the things I wonder if you could talk a little bit about is, I know something over the past year or so you've struggled with is, and I want to dive into, is whether or not you want to stay in sales long-term, and kind of dealing with that mental math around, okay, is this worth it? And I feel like that I ask about that because I feel like that's something, if salespeople were honest with themselves, most of us probably go through at some point.
I'm going to pause real quick because this interview is going to be very hard for me.
If you don't want to do this, I can pivot the question.
No, I can do it. So you're asking to share a little bit about what it's been like to battle whether or not I should be doing this, whether I'm qualified to do this, those things of that sort. Yeah, it's a tough journey. One, it's a hard job. It's not a hard concept to sell. It's a hard job because of the rejection, the ups and downs, and then things out of your control. That's hard enough, right? Then there's another part of it where I've had to learn and figure out how to communicate with people who don't communicate like me, who don't think like me, who definitely don't have the same background as me. That's been a challenge. And I think the last thing, just quite frankly, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm a competitor and I like to win. And I think that scares people, just to be completely real. Not because I'm the smartest guy, not because I can sell better, but I'm going to put in the work and I'm going to find every answer I can so that I can win. And I think that's scary to some people. All that to say, like, I'm still here for now. How long? I don't know, to be honest.
So I'm curious, because I didn't know this. So I know a lot of women wind up leaving sales because you just reach this point where it's like, you're not going to get a promotion. It's just not going to happen.
And we talked about this literally in our interview last week with Travis. Same thing. I asked Travis and Brian to count how many black sales pros they knew,
yeah,
badass, but who left.
Yes.
And it's a lot.
It's a lot. And so I'm curious, like, is it that? Do you feel like it's, you say like people, there's something about your competitiveness that like is intimidating or scary for some people. Is it more people's reaction to you that is making you be like, nah, I don't know about this? Or is it the job itself? Because like, I know for me, I made the switch. It was very heavily both, where I sucked at the grind of sales. I sucked at like the discipline of it. And I would do great for 6 months and then I would kind of lose my give a shit. And that combined with the fact that I just felt like I did not get the support and I would never get promoted to AE. I was like, I can't solve both of these problems at once. So like, I don't think you have the same problem I did, but like, is it that it just feels like winning the battle of people's perception of you and dealing with that is just like exhausting?
That's a very intriguing question. And to not get ahead of myself, I would say I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
Because I think I mentioned this a couple of times. Actually, I don't know if I mentioned to you or, whether it was on a podcast or just posting on LinkedIn, but it was a time where I had to challenge myself and ask, like, is it me? Like, am I not disciplined? The very things you said, I had to challenge myself. I think that was the first thing I did is I checked myself.
Yeah.
Like, hey, like, are you putting in the work? Kasey, I got to a place when I looked at the success, right? I asked people like, hey, well, how did you do at your last job? What type of business were you closing? How much? Yeah. And like, to start at a company, close a $50,000 deal within 6 weeks of starting at the company. Maybe one other person that did that at that time. And then they change the way you're prospecting, the type of people you're outreaching, the type of deals you close. Then now you no longer have success. That has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm not a victim. I want to make that loud and clear.
Yeah.
Like, it made me better. Roger Jefferson, him and I were talking, and I just told him I'm not scared to lose my job anymore like I was.
Yeah.
And he asked me what did I think that was, and I didn't know. And he said that's because the confidence you have in yourself because of the things you've succeeded at and you've seen yourself do. And I was just like, oh my God, that's right. So to answer your question, the first part of that question, no, I don't think it's because I don't have the discipline to do sales. I when I'm winning, I love this shit. When I'm losing, I hate it. I think that's everybody.
Totally.
But you mentioned something about like people's reaction outwardly to me.
Yeah.
That wasn't the problem that was getting to me. If you're racist, show me you're racist.
Yeah.
Right. I want to know that. Not because I'm going to treat you a certain way, but then at least know where we are. The problem that I was dealing with is that the stuff was happening behind closed doors.
That's it. Yeah. It's the subtle stuff that it's not right in your face.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
It plays tricks on yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And so like two of my best friends, Black women, we all started our SDR career together. They both were better than me. Hands down better than me. On paper, I looked better than them because I was playing the game.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story, right?
Yeah.
But one had closed more revenue than me, even though I'd set more appointments, right? That's what SDR is supposed to do. Her deals had closed more often than mine did. And then the other one had a better show rate had a better appointment to show rate than I did while we were there, right? Neither one of them are in sales anymore. One's working at HubSpot kicking ass. The other one's writing content like for a great financial firm.
Yeah.
So all that to say, I think the subtle stuff behind the scenes, it's what's killing people, making people want to leave, not do this profession anymore.
Well, I'll say this too, if I may, as someone else who considers herself very competitive, the hardest thing in the world for me to do is to keep playing a game when I know it's rigged against me.
Yeah, boy.
Whew. I'm one of those people who the monopoly is not in my house anymore because of how many fights it started. How many fights I started while playing Monopoly.
I will not. I won't. Any of my friends know. You say Monopoly, I'm out. Nah, I'm good.
Oh, Risk. Okay. I'm one of those ones who I grew up playing Risk, and it was like multi-week games with me and my friends with this because we were all so. But for me, it's. I think it's a bit of kind of what Kasey says. It's like everyone's fighting their own battles. And everyone has a threshold for how many battles they can fight simultaneously. And there is a point, we always say everybody's got a number. I have a number for what it would take for me to move to Omaha and do sales. And it's basically enough that I would be able to have a chartered jet to fly me to Omaha. Nothing against them. I just don't want to live in Omaha. You know, I have a number for what it would take to get me to do certain jobs I don't want to do. I also have a number for how many problems I can handle before I'm saying, peace out, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the reverse of that too, the beauty in all of that, like figuring out whether I want to be here, if I belong here, all that stuff. The thing I've learned is there's somebody out there for you. There's a leader out there for you. There's a company out there for you. It's the process in which you take to educate yourself, eliminate to get to that spot, because there is a spot out. So you don't have time to be a victim. Like everybody can eat. There's a spot out here for you.
But it's hard to find that because no hiring manager or recruiter is honest about things, right? Like there's not a single person I know that hasn't had a sales job where they're like, oh, it's 70% inbound leads, 90% of reps hit quota. And then you get in and you're like, that was the biggest load of BS ever. Like, that is not what is happening. And you're like, oh God, I just this job, shit. Like, but I think the thing about what we're talking about here, I think the thing that is so hard about it, I think people in general are really good at dealing with adversity. And especially those of us that, like, for one reason or another have dealt with definitely more than our fair share of it. But the problem is that the way you deal with adversity is head on. And when no one's being head on with you about what you're actually dealing with, what are you supposed to do? And it makes you, Brian, like you nailed it. It makes you question yourself. It's the systemic version of gaslighting where you start to think you're crazy.
Yeah.
Because you're like, wait, but I am good at this. And they made it seem like I would get this promotion. And it seemed like I had all this opportunity. And yet I just don't get it. And it's so hard to pinpoint what it is. And there's literally nothing you can actually complain about because they have a reason. They always have a reason for it. Yeah. And when you complain about everything that happens, you become the crazy person that complains all the time and no one wants to work with you anymore. And so it's this like, how do you choose your battles? And
as I said though, right? Choose your battle. Figure out what you need to get from that job right then and there. Or while you're starting a job, what is it that I need to walk away with? And there's no wrong way. And again, there's this whole non-spoken of rules you're supposed to play by, right? I want to be with the company for multiple years and all that. That's cool. But in your mind, you need to figure out what you need to get out of this role. And once you get that, you have to be okay with the results or whatever happens. I wish somebody would have told me that.
So how did you figure it out?
Ooh, great question. I know the answer to. I just want to make sure I explain it in a way that's practical. Because really the answer is ask questions. Yeah. And as you continue to ask questions, you're going to find somebody real. I always say real recognizes real. Mm-hmm. And so as long as you continue to ask questions, the minute somebody gives you that answer that you've really been thinking the whole time, it validates it. Roger Jefferson is the sole person that did that for me. I mean, I was supposed to talk to him for 30 minutes. It turned to an hour and a half. He changed the course of my career, my life. The Brian you're getting right now, this literally is because Roger Jefferson like gave me a little key and it unlocked everything for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it's just keep searching, keep asking questions. The minute you stop asking questions is the minute you'll drown.
But how did you get that conversation with Roger Jefferson? Were you working with him? Did you reach out to him? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, that's the practical way, right? I have been following him for a while. So one, research, watch people. Their true colors will eventually show. And so I've been following Roger probably the last 3 years. And of course, you know, in the small tech community, everybody ends up in the same places online and different places. So finally I was like, all right, he's been saying some stuff. And I'm like, yo, maybe he'll understand what I've been going through based on what he's sharing. And I literally sent him a LinkedIn message and get into all it was personalized and this and that. But I just basically said, yo, this is long overdue. I've been following you for 3 years. You know, I'm experiencing this. Can we chat soon? And again, real recognizes real, right? And so because he knew where I was coming from, based on my message, he was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
So reach out. There's nothing wrong with reaching out. And people might not respond, and that's okay. Roderick's got a story about where a guy he reached out to didn't respond to him for years. And then Roderick was the speaker at a conference, and he was like, I should have took your message. So like, just keep doing you.
And I think that's a good point. Like follow up again, because sometimes you get like people get lots of LinkedIn messages and then it gets buried and you're like, shit, that person sent me this message and I meant to reply and now I can't remember their name and you can't find the message in your LinkedIn inbox and like shit happens. So send a fucking follow up.
And if it's, go ahead. Yeah. And if it's like, if you're that serious and passionate about it, like, I don't care. I can say right now, I've got a meeting next week solely because I wouldn't follow this person on Instagram. And she said, oh my gosh, out of all the people I'm connected to on LinkedIn, nobody has yet to do this. Let's chat.
Yeah.
Like, don't be like, there's my whole mantra since talking to Roderick is rules are optional. Like, everything in this community, the way we prospect, the way we sell, how we think shit works, it's optional. It really is.
I like that.
Yeah.
Because like I tell people all the time, like, don't be afraid of failure, because there are only two things you can do that will really legitimately kill a deal. And that's lying or being rude. And at the same time, I'm sitting here thinking, I've been rude to people during deals. I've been rude. And I've done with a specific purpose. And I have lied. Not about features, not about stuff like that. But there have been situations where their white lies were better than the truth. It's life. It sucks. It happens. That's my ethics. I'll stand by it. None of it was consequential. But I really like that.
It's so true when you begin, and I'm not talking about like illegal stuff like rules.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
fraud.
Like, I'm talking about like the traditional ways people are pushing, right? Like personalization, right? That's the biggest thing people are, like, do you know, like, people have made billions off of automation, no personalization?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was the thing. You know what I mean? So not that I'm saying do that by any means. Like, please don't take that and run with that. But again, it goes back to like, make moves based on your experience and what you've seen success in, not what somebody told you at the end of the day.
And your instinct, because sometimes
so important.
It's so, as a marketer, I would say like my biggest advantage is I don't know shit about marketing. Like no one trained me how to do anything. So much of what I do is like, I took what I know from sales and especially sales development, and I like hack it for marketing. And like any marketer would be like, you should not do that. That is a terrible idea.
Right.
It's what really works. And so it's like, there's all sorts of things that we can do where it's like, if you think there's a way to solve a problem that no one else has tried before, and you just got this like gut feeling that there's something there, dude, it's always worth at least a test. Always.
People gave me crap in the earlier days for saying, hey, first name, and then going into my spiel in the email. Which, it's funny, y'all both had the same reaction, right? But I'm telling you,
rolled our eyes.
4.5 years ago, I promise you, it was like, no, you've got to do hi. Hey is too. I said, if I see Barack Obama on the street, I'm saying, hey, Barack, or hey, Mr. President. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just, hi, Barack, how are you? Like,
well, I had a client, actually. The reason why I reacted the way I did, and then I immediately started laughing because I remember now I had a client like, I don't know, a year and a half ago where we wrote a follow-up message to a marketing campaign we did. And we said, hey, first name. And they were like, no, this is a very formal audience. You can't do that. They wanted us to say, wait for it, dear Mr. or Ms. So-and-so. And we were like, no, like, we are not doing this. And we like put our foot down, and it was like one of the most effective campaigns they'd ever run, because they just assumed that like everything needed to be done a certain way. And it's like, dude, when you like break that pattern, and you come across as like actually real, it's amazing. Like people want to connect with people, not, I don't know.
It's the signal and the noise. The one thing that will get attention in a crowded room is someone coming up and saying, hi, can we chat? That's always going to be, it's not going to be the loudest person in the room. It's the person who comes over and just makes that connection.
Yeah.
I live by high risk, high reward. And that, again, that might be some of my heartache in sales, right? Like I play big or I go home. So either I'm going to knock it out of the park or I'm going to fall flat on my face. You know, that may be a part of the issue, but it's the same way. Like I like to swim upstream when everybody's swimming downstream.
The contrarian.
Well,
it's just that, like, that's how I'm wired.
Yeah. I think that's the other thing that we don't talk about enough in sales. We talk about like, oh, rejection's hard. But for me, the big thing that was always really tough is, my first sort of sales job, I canvassed door to door for a political organization. Okay. So it's it's like the worst form of sales ever. And I was so much preppier than everyone else working there. So they would send me to all the like super Republican neighborhoods, and I would get like men in their 50s screaming at me how I was everything that was wrong with America and like slam the door in my face. And the thing that's tough about sales, I think, is the cognitive dissonance of having to treat every single call and every single opportunity like it's the only one that matters. And then when it doesn't happen, like it doesn't matter at all. And like how, like wrapping that, your brain around that and doing it consistently is so freaking hard. And I think it's draining. It's draining. And I feel like it just takes this, like, especially if you are a really heart-driven human, it takes such a toll.
How do we get past that? What do you, because I'm thinking about that, like, dang, that is so real. Like, how do we treat wins and losses as the same? Like, it's like, hey, like, it's okay. Like, I lost. How do you shrug that off?
I think it's really hard when you work in an organization that is like obsessively numbers and quota driven, and they all kind of are. Like, when you can work in a sales environment where they actually treat failure as an opportunity for everybody to learn. Like, okay, how about this? How many sales orgs do, like, we all do win reports? How often do we do loss reports of like, hey, like I went in, this is what I did. It failed because of this. Like, what can we all learn from it? I've never worked for a sales organization that does that.
I actually tried to do that. I called it, I borrowed from medicine. They do a thing called an M&M conference, or morbidity and mortality. And
that is really dark.
It's dark. It's an M&M, but it's a thing. And it's basically where doctors will get up and they'll present cases where they lost, where someone died, and they say, here's what they came in with, here are the symptoms, here are the tests, here's the this, here's the that. And it's a chance for, it's like a doctor in front of a room of 300 people.
Yeah.
And everyone's asking questions. Did you consider this? What about this? Could we have done that?
We don't talk about failure in sales. We only talk about wins. And I think that makes it, and Ashleigh, you have the line that I love of like, never lose alone. Yeah. But like, even if you lose with a couple of people, you don't lose with like your team. We don't talk about it.
No.
And I think that makes it so we don't learn from failures. We just try to move on. And so it makes failure, I think, so much more oppressive.
And I'll say this too. Like I said, I tried to bring it to an org. I actually pitched this at, I think, 2 different companies, and both times the same thing happened. Everyone was like, okay, we'll try it. But what it really came down to was no one wanted to participate.
Yeah.
It was pulling teeth to get people to go up in front of the room and say, and subject themselves to that. And this is where I think kind of it's the same thing with storytelling. If you can't see it, you can't be it. But it takes someone being brave and getting up there and saying, I lost, here's what happened. And then another person sees that and is inspired by that first person. And then it starts a chain reaction. As long as that opportunity is met and it's done in a way that is, let's figure out how we can learn from this. I've had this quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, that life is too short to make all the mistakes yourself. Learn from the mistakes of others, or something like that. I'm butchering it. but it's like, we have to, it's not just about sharing best practices. It's about sharing our failures so that others can learn from them. And also so you can be sure you know what you did wrong. Because that's one of the things I've learned when I've lost is, I mean, even in the past 6 months, starting my own business, closing my own deals and stuff like that, there have been a few points where deals have gone sideways. And I've reached out to people and gone, okay, what happened here?
Yeah.
I know the result. I think I know what I did. And there's one particular deal that's happened where it just went completely sideways. And this is like, it went sideways after the contract was signed. They came back to me and said, oh, I must not have read this right, because I didn't realize that I was agreeing to an extra X $1,000. I was like, but you signed it. Pay me my money. And it took conversations with like 4 or 5 different people. Kasey, you were one of them.
I remember.
To realize like 4 things I could have learned from that. It's like, okay, I can fix this, kind of, enough. It's fine. But it's like I learned 4 or 5 things that I've now applied to my process. That's never going to happen again, you know? And like, I'm thinking about this, like, hey, like I've had 3 people reach out to me in the past week or 2 that they're like, hey, I'm starting my own consulting business. Those are the 3 first things I'm telling them. Yeah. It's like, dude, like for those who are listening, it's like, put everything in black and white in contracts. Anytime something changes, color code it. You can highlight contracts. I didn't know that, you know, make sure you make cancellation terms really consistent. You can set your cancellation terms. My contracts do not have cancellations. Once you sign it, you've locked me in, you own me.
Yeah.
You don't get out. Because if you give someone an out, they'll take it. Thank God I was doing that before COVID hit, or I would have really been screwed. Yeah. You know? So there's things, but you don't know this stuff unless you screw up, unless people are open and saying, I learned this the hard way. Don't be like me. I wish we did that. Maybe that's a podcast, the sales M&M.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think it would be kind of amazing of like, and I think, we have I think there are a couple of podcasts or video series of the tear down of emails and things like that, but we don't do it in a deeper context. And I think we've developed particularly in the tech industry, this like love of, or this appreciation of failure and like fail forward and all of that stuff. I feel like sales might, as I'm saying this, I'm like, I think that's kind of a line of bullshit and maybe nobody actually really lives that. It's like only really early stage founders,
or people who just failed and are telling themselves that it's going to be okay. I'm failing up.
We only say it after we failed like 7 times and then we succeed. Then we're like, I'm owning my failure now that it's part of my hero story.
Right.
Whatever. But like, I do think that sales in particular, I think we're worse at it. Like there's something about the culture where we just are so reluctant to talk about the things that aren't going well. Because we're often terrified that it's going to mean our job. It's going to mean that promotion. And I don't know how we shift that. And I don't know if we like create a freaking support group on the side where we can all like share kind of in closer quarters. But I feel like that's a big part of this, where like, it's that cognitive dissonance that I think was so hard for me. And we don't talk about it enough, and we don't do enough to really support one another kind of going through that and dealing with it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that makes it more important just to really focus on, it's important to set a value and goal that you have when starting for yourself.
Yeah.
Like that's the only thing I can think of to like avoid that, or at least dodge it for a while, because it's inevitable, right?
Or like cope with it.
Yeah.
Like, because then if it's something other than your freaking quota.
Yeah. Right.
Like
quota is not a motivator.
It is when you're nailing it. It is not when you're not.
I don't even, but to be real, even when you're hitting that quota, like, shit, Monday is coming. You know,
Yeah.
kind of like Game of Thrones, winter's coming. Like, like the next quarter is coming, and that's all I can think about when I'm hitting it. So it's like, is it really great when I'm hitting it? Because I'll just give you a perfect example. Like, I did well from when COVID happened till now.
Yeah.
Now the pressure is, how do I keep that up?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's foreign territory. I think most sales reps would agree. Like, unless you get on the right bus at the right time, in the right seat, with the right company, with the right founders, with the right board, right? You see where I'm going? Like, those are the success stories where it's just like, you know what I mean? And that is so small, so small. So, I don't even know if it's like great when you're hitting it.
It's fleeting. It's great for a moment, and then like 5 minutes later, you're like, okay, now what?
Well, I'll say this though, like for me, like even when I'm hitting quote, even when I'm hitting goal and stuff like that, I'm not excited about hitting goal. I'm excited about that paycheck.
Yeah.
That paycheck is what's motivating me. So I'm at quota, and it's like, boom, now I'm in accelerators. Now I'm stoked because I want to make a ton more money. It's the, and even then, I think it's not the money, because I do this exercise with a lot of my students. It's the why. So you're writing sales content. It's like, why does this feature matter? Why do they care about that? It's like, okay, I care about quota because I care about money. Okay, why do I care about money? I care about money because I care about providing and maintaining a certain lifestyle. Why do I care about that lifestyle? That's my mission.
The 5 whys is like the best exercise anybody can do, especially when you're struggling with stuff, is that you ask yourself why 5 times in a row. You get to this thing where you're like, oh shit, that is real. It was the first time someone did that with me was it was my like strength trainer. And I was like, I want to lose a couple pounds. And he was like, okay, why? And then it's like, it went from like something so lame and superficial to like something so deep and personal that I wasn't tapping into. And as soon as I did, it was like, whoa, okay, game changer. And
is there a way like managers or whoever can tie quota into the 5 whys? Like, is there some way we can get better? It's gotta, I get it, right? It's business. We're here to grow, make money. But like, is there a better way to communicate quota than just quota for the sake of quota?
I always tried to illustrate it for my teams when I was leading. So like, I always made sure in the interview process, I figured out what that why was. What was their thing? Are they, and sometimes it was superficial. Sometimes it wasn't. A lot of times it was like, I just want to move up. A lot of times it was, I need to provide for my family, or I need to do this or need to do that. So every time we're doing quota review or pipeline review, I'm like, all right, so let's make this real for a sec. Yeah. You keep going on this path right here, you're going to get this, and let's gameplay that out. That means you're not going to be able to go home and visit your family.
I always thought it's funny that like one of the biggest things for salespeople is you have to be money motivated. Yet like we requirements are like 4-year degree, all these things, 4-year degree, experience doing this, having doing this. I'm like, the world we live in, typically those people who have all that came from money. So they probably don't really care about money. Like, so I don't know, that's a whole other tangent, but that's where my mind went when you were saying that.
Well, so one of the reasons why I really love all the content and just like as a person, Kevin Dorsey, KD, is he talks a lot about the deeper side of it, the like connecting on a personal level to the work that you do. And I think modeling it for your team can be really powerful, but it's also, how often do you have a manager that actually asks you, that actually sits down in a one-on-one and is like, okay, let's talk about your goals and why you're motivated to do these things, and like actually gets you to get to that like deeper level. And it's really interesting. It's like the people that manage to somehow do that and bring that to their managers wind up getting way more support. Like, so the last time I was on a sales role, I was also going to night school to get my MBA. And so I was doing all this like deep personal work to figure out like what the fuck I wanted to do with my life and all this stuff. And so I was constantly in my boss's office being like, okay, I like this, I don't like that. How do I do more of this and less of that? Like constantly. And as a result, when this like marketing job opened up, he was like, this is for Kasey. Like, we need to bring this to her. And it's the reason why I made the switch. And later on, he and I were talking, and I said something where I made it clear that I just assumed he did that with everyone. And he was like, no, Kasey, he was like, you were the only one that was constantly in my office talking about what you wanted and where you wanted to go and how I could help you. And he was like, you know, I'm busy and I'm spread thin, and I didn't have that relationship with other people because they weren't bringing that to me. And so I wasn't able to help them the way I could help you. And I was lucky because I was like doing that outside of work. And I realized like, holy shit, like if somebody just took the time to like explain that when you're like an SDR and you have no idea what you're doing and you're trying to figure it out and you're trying to get to that next level. If someone was like, hey, if you can do this work and bring it to your boss, it like changes the game. And I don't think we're taught how to be good employees either.
Nope.
We're not taught how to play the game.
We're not taught how to play the game.
Yeah, so figure it out on your own. And again, capitalist society, it makes sense, but still, like, if you want true success, I think you've got to have it.
Well, I think there's a lot of people also that like, and frankly, in the conversations I have, it's more likely to be women and oftentimes people of color, where we're sort of taught growing up that like, no, you put your head down, you work really hard, and someone's going to notice and tap you on the shoulder and like do
hard work is rewarded.
Yeah. And it's like, no, it like literally does not work that way. No one will tap you on the shoulder, or 1% of the time will someone tap you on the shoulder. Like you have to carve that path for yourself. And it's often, we don't figure that out until we've learned the hard way, like a bunch of times.
No, that like that management thing I was telling you, that grew out of me wishing I did it for people because I wish someone had done it for me.
Totally.
I think the problem is the majority is saying that outwardly, like work hard and someone will tap you on the shoulder. Well, that's true if you're part of the majority, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was taught that very same thing. And probably a year and a half into 2 years into my career, I was like,
wait,
that shit is wrong. Like, that is not true at all.
Well, and here's the other thing. It's like, in the majority, they also do not wait. They are more likely to ask for raises fast. They're more likely to go for promotion. Like,
to have mentors, to have sponsors. It's easier to build the relationships. It's not easy. We're not saying it's all easy and everyone's got their challenges. But statistically, you'll look at this stuff.
And they're born and bred with more of a sense of entitlement. And so it, like them asking for raises and things like that is just second nature. Like, and so yes. And then when they do ask, it's more likely to be received well than it is for lots of other people. So there's that. But that, you know, I always think about the like, and I think this is predominantly white men. The study always just says men. I think it's white men, where they're like, women will look at a list of job requirements and they will only apply if they meet 100%. And men will apply if they meet 60.
I thought it was 50.
I originally heard 30, and then I saw it somewhere a couple times recently where it was 60. Either way, it's not fucking 100. No. And they don't think twice about that. And so I don't know. I feel like we just all need to train one another that we don't have to either.
Sure.
Yep. Real talk. All right, so Brian, kind of pivoting it back to you a little bit. One of the things that you've said a few times that I think really has been a good perspective giver for me, kind of because we got kind of the opposite experience with this, is when I walk into a room, it's who's this girl, and I pick girl very specifically. You walk into a room, you are a large, proud Black man. It's almost the opposite emotional response. How has that impacted you? And have you found a way to use it to your advantage yet?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that was a good question.
And I mean that. How has it impacted me? And what was the second part of it?
Have you found a way to use it to your advantage yet?
Yeah. It's impacted me in a way. So my mom and my parents and just family said I was always outgoing growing up. I was a kid that was always getting into stuff. Was always the loudest in the classroom. I was always the class clown. I've got some other theories on that I won't dive into. But as I got older, that changed and I became more of an introvert. And I think it's because I felt like I had to tone it down to make my appearance, my personality softer for people. How I've embraced it to my advantage. It's powerful when you've listened because you're not talking, or you feel like you're not the one that needs to carry the party, the meeting, or whatever you're doing. If you can truly listen, and when your time comes, just like Kasey was saying earlier, right? I learned this late. I wish I would have learned it earlier. It falls on your boss's ears when you're quiet the entire time. And the minute you get that one-on-one or you get their attention and you can execute what you heard in your thoughts, it works 10 times over. But I'm still working through that, to be completely honest. I think that's the biggest thing where I'm at in my career is I'm realizing all this stuff is happening and I'm still working through it. But at times I think people may have not gotten to see the real me because I was worried about what they would think, who I truly am, right? But I've come to learn that's what people love, right? When Trish Bertuzzi tells you, like, yo, you're a rock star, I'm like, wait, what? Really? How? Why? I haven't worked for you yet. Like, how do you know this? Like, tell me more. But it's those type things that verify, who you are. And so I try to just embrace who I am and let the results speak for itself.
So, as I think by far the oldest on this call.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
How old are you?
How old do I look?
You look 28.
Damn, Kasey, that's pretty good. I'm 29.
Okay, so I'm 38. So let the old lady explain something to you. You don't ever finish processing this shit. Yeah. And you don't ever finish understanding like who you are and what is the real you. It is like the constant peeling back of layers. And it's always exciting where you'll be like, aha moment, but it evolves over time. And especially it evolves, I think, sometimes based on the environment that you're in. So I'll tell you, like, I'm an extroverted introvert. And when I was in a shitty marriage, I was so introverted. I became so introverted. I hated being in public. I became so insular. And I did a lot of like work on me behind the scenes. And when that ended and I kind of rebuilt myself, it was like total transformation. So you go through these weird periods where like you gravitate more towards this one part of you because of the environment you're in and the things you're dealing with. And it winds up informing these other parts as you evolve. So I only say this of like, this isn't like it's not a negative thing. And I know it sort of sounds like it. It's actually this wonderful, it's an incredibly rewarding part, I think, about life is that every freaking year, every month, you get closer to you, and you get closer to this understanding of you. And there's this constantly increasing depth, and then crazy things like COVID and around the world protests about violence and racism in America thrust you forward, and you do like 10 years of thinking and processing in 3 months. And so it's not always this, it's not linear, but like you get deeper and deeper into like who you are constantly. And so, dude, it's so obvious that you think about these things way more than the average 29-year-old and are like so much deeper and so like wise beyond your years. And that trend is only going to continue. So you'll be like that sage Buddha wise guy by the time you're like 35. And there's something, revel in the fucking beauty and the power of that. Because that is also going to be like a serious superpower and so helpful in terms of like how you navigate all this crazy ass shit that's going on.
I appreciate that. That means a ton. Can I just stay real quick? Ashleigh, I'm sorry. I just got to apologize to your husband because Kasey, I can't focus ever since you said you're 38. What you drinking? What are you eating? Jesus fucking Christ.
Right?
What? I can't even focus. I'm just gonna be honest. Like that's all I've been thinking about is okay, you're 38. What you eating? What's your diet? I want to know.
Well, I'll tell you, I have a bunch of really weird exotic health problems. So I eat an incredibly restrictive diet. Like I almost never eat sugar. I never eat wheat. I never eat dairy.
You have your celery juice every day.
My celery juice every morning.
I hope you take that as a compliment because
I drink these absolutely disgusting green smoothies that have literally like 3 cups of greens in them every single. I mean, okay, it should be every single day, but it's not every single day, and like that, you know. I also have very good genes. My mother looks 20 years younger than she is. I mean, she's had a little work done, but like not enough to make her.
I was tripping. I was like, I did not see that coming. Like I was like, focus. All I could think of.
You were thinking that I was saying like, oh, I'm so much older than you. I'm like 2 years old.
Yeah, like you said that. I was just like, what the fuck is she eating? What is she doing? Like, is she like going out in the sun? Is she like, tell me.
Well, she lives in Portland. They get the sun like 2 months a year.
I have what my father refers to as my Portland ghostly sheen. You can't tell, but I'm actually a person with olive skin that tans very easily, but I'm like sheet white. But I'm a big believer that a healthy diet is the thing that would save us all, genuinely.
I'll say it's interesting too, because I feel like sales pros end up on one side or the other of the good diet thing. They're either neurotic about their diet, they're keto, they're Whole30, they're whatever they are, or they're more kind of in my side, which is what's in the pantry. I'm gonna have
let me
all this crap for dinner.
I have zero willpower, so if there are like bad things in the house, I will literally eat it all in one sitting. So every now and then we'll, and I can't have dairy, so I'll get like, coconut milk ice cream. So Salt and Straw is like the best ice cream in the world, and it's from Portland, and we can get it delivered to our house. And I will just eat the entire pint because I'll start eating it, and then I'll be like, do I pretend like I can extend this, or do we just give in and literally eat it? So there's no willpower.
I'm going plant-based Monday. Well, plant-based somewhat. Like,
yeah,
I'm a barbecue guy, so like I gotta have brisket once a month.
Oh, shout out to Good Life Barbecue. Yeah. Follow that shit on Instagram. It's Brian's Barbecue. It's amazing.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so I'm my partner, my boyfriend is from North Carolina, and he's done a ton of traveling around the US. So literally when we watch oh God, what's the show? It's like the best food you've ever eaten. And they did the first episode it's the like 12 best barbecue dishes in the country. Andy had been to literally every single one. So we eat a lot of barbecue in our house, but I also eat just a ridiculous amount of vegetables. We all need to eat more vegetables.
I'm doing it Monday. I got another kid on my wife is going to deliver another kid on the way. So like I got to get my body together.
Yeah. Well,
we're chasing around these little, do we know the gender of the other?
They're gremlins. That's what they are.
We were chasing around your gremlins.
They're mean. They only care about themselves. I understand this is a part of it, but it is what it is. Like I call her like the devil sometimes, and my wife gets real mad when I call her like the devil or demon child. I'll call her. She'll be like, call my child that one more time. Like, so,
I love your wife.
Sorry about the tangent.
All right.
If you ever want help with the diet, because I've been doing this
I welcome it.
Like I literally haven't eaten a piece of pizza in 7 years.
Oh, shit. I can't do that. I can't.
Yeah. But if you ever want help or you're like, I don't know what I should eat.
Help me. I'm a big researcher. Like my whole undergrad.
Oh, I'll send you a bunch of things. I
am a researcher. Like people always ask how you get so good at barbecue or even sales. They ask me how you get
so good.
I when I first hopped into it, I read everything I could like possible to make my own assumptions. And that's how I execute so well. So like I'm the same way. Like I've just been reading about plant-based. Like what is it? Why is it important? What should I be eating for breakfast? Like so anything you can send me?
Okay. I'll send you a bunch of things.
All right, sweet. All right, I don't know how we get back on topic, but
we do it like this. So now that we've all gone from both the ethereal of self-identification and the self-awareness journey down to the very basics of the Maslow's hierarchy to how do we eat? Let's just bring it back to something that's really serious, and that is the lightning round.
Oh God. I've been doing this for people.
We clearly I think we really do need like a theme music just for the lightning round. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. You singing that theme music was awesome.
It's like a token thing. Like you're not doing are you really doing a podcast if you don't have that?
Thing? Seriously. I think we need the like really cheesy kind of DJ sound effects.
Yeah.
Kind of.
So it is the lightning round, series of rapid fire questions designed, not a lot of thought, just end with something a little bit fun. So first question, Brian Smith Jr. What is your morning routine?
Okay, I can do this. Wake up. I typically read something, whether it's one of my passions. So it's got to be like something about barbecue. I play a little bit of guitar, so I may like research some stuff on what's happening with guitars or how they're made or something like that. But typically when I first wake up, I read about something like that. Not sales. I got to do that shit every day, all day. I don't read about that.
I like that. So this might be a repeat, and that's totally okay. Pick one person who's had a significant impact on your career.
Can I name two? I know or do you need? Can I name two or just one? Okay.
Remember, all rules are optional.
Yes, let's go.
Bring that call back.
I was gonna say my first boss, but it says significant impact on my career. My first boss for giving me a shot, one. Two, Morgan Ingram, because I really feel like when you have somebody that says outwardly that champions you, Malcolm Gladwell is one of my favorite authors. I hope I get to meet him one day. He talks about we need champions in our life. And Morgan gave me this shout out and said, hey, this guy knows his stuff. Like he's doing the work behind the scenes. You need to follow him. It like catapulted me into a world that I didn't know about, wasn't expecting, didn't even know what to do once I was there, right? Or here, whatever it is. So shout out to him for that. And then for sure, Roderick Jefferson just recently, I think he changed my life. That's all I can say. I don't want to add anything to it. He changed my life.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I'm excited for this one. What is your pump up song?
Yeah, let's go. So again, rules optional, right? So I don't have a pump up song. I have a pump up playlist. It's called the Pick Me Up. It's on Spotify. I don't know if I have it open for people, but it's anything from like Da Baby or Chance the Rapper, and I think there's a little bit of Future in there. And then lastly, Meek Mill. So typically anything Meek Mill. Travis on the podcast, if you listened to it the week before, said Dreams and Nightmares. Like that's probably my go-to for sure.
Awesome.
Shout out to all the Philly people.
Okay. What's your favorite sales book? Oh, no, wait. I skipped one. Shit. Sorry. I'm messing up the order. God, I'm the worst.
It's okay. Kasey, you just got back. Welcome back.
I know. Thank you. Thank you. What's one thing you wish you'd learned earlier?
Rules are optional.
Yeah.
Like dead serious. Like it really, I just wish I understood that there's a game being played and realistically the rules are optional. How you get promoted, how you succeed, like everything that's written is optional.
All right. What's your favorite sales book?
None of them. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Maybe not. It's not directly a sales book, but it's not a sales book, but it's called David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell.
I freaking love that book.
It's literally on my nightstand because Casey's been yelling at me to read it.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
It will make things. It will put things in perspective for you from the aspect of your life, and it helps you decide that when you read that book, and that opens up like the floodgates. So that book is the reason why I moved to Atlanta, why I took the sales job, and why I got married at such a young age.
That's amazing.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So sorry about all the background noise.
I can't hear anything.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so what's one way someone could have been a better ally to you in your career?
Better ally to me in my career. I think the biggest way anybody could have is this is a lone wolf industry career role. And I think if we like looked at it as we're in a pack, so giving me access to the blueprint, right? That would have been so helpful. Because again, like the saying is, I can bring you to water, but you've got to drink. So like, it's like we're almost scared to give people the blueprint because they might do better than us. One, that's a good thing. Like we should want that as human nature. Two, like I still have to actually execute on this. So I wish somebody would have gave me somewhat of a blueprint.
What's one way you're working to be a better ally for others?
Educate. Whether I sound stupid, whether it may be wrong right now, this is what I believe and how I feel. And somebody's probably in the same boat or situation or chair, and it'll help them.
Okay, last but not least, what's your guilty pleasure after a bad day?
Can you believe I've asked this question to people on y'all's podcast and I still can't figure out what my guilty pleasure is? Like I've asked this a million times. Well, not a million, but multiple times. And I just can't. What is it? I got a bunch of things. I can make a nice Manhattan, a favorite like local beer here from one of the breweries. Like I'm a big stout guy, but then like in the spring, I love sours in the summer. So I don't know, maybe knocking a couple of those back or barbecue. Let's say barbecue. Yeah,
that's fair. That is fair.
Absolutely.
For sure. Or the combination of both.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for jumping in and helping and for being so real and delightful as you always are today.
This was awesome.
So for all of you listening, thank you for listening to another episode of The Other Side of Sales. Brian, where can people find you?
Ooh, I'm everywhere. No, on LinkedIn, obviously, Brian Smith Jr. I think all of my Instagram handles are I am Mr. Smith __. And then my pride and joy, Good Life Barbecue. I'm building a community for people who want to be not pit masters, but want to enjoy grilling, enjoy the outdoor cooking. I'm building a community over there. So
he's actually convincing me to like barbecue. I'm not a barbecue person, and he's working on me.
That just means you haven't had good barbecue.
That's what they keep telling me.
That's it. And there's a lot of just shitty barbecue out there. There's a lot where you're like, and it's like pizza where it's like, it's not bad, but good barbecue is like transformative and you will never look back. Like,
talk to him, Kasey. Preach.
Legit. And it's funny. It's like people don't know this about Portland. We weirdly have amazing barbecue in Portland. Like, you don't think of it as like a super white hipster cities kind of food, but like we've got awesome barbecue here and we eat just like a fuck ton of it. And literally I have my boyfriend just smoked a giant brisket yesterday. So we've got barbecue in the house. So.
All right. So make sure to like and subscribe to hear about Ashleigh's journey to figuring out barbecue and more tips from awesome people like Kasey and Brian. But in all seriousness, please do connect with Brian, tell him how awesome he is and everything like that. Thank him for jumping in and helping out. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, especially as we do have the results of the State of Sales survey coming out soon. Bonus points if you actually leave us a review on Spotify or Apple, because that's a super huge help to us. And with that, thank you for listening to another episode of The Other Side of Sales, and we will see you next time.